Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Antuan Vance. Clearly, I've done some changes, which you can see on YouTube. You can't see on podcast because you don't have the visual. But thank you for joining me. This episode, Mia Renna is my guest. Such a great honor to meet her. She's got a lot going on. I really wish her the best. You're going to hear about it. She's writing a memoir, talking about her experiences in the military, some lessons to everyone's, also some personal things. But we're going to get into that in the episode. So I say thank you for joining me again. She was an awesome guest. There were a few technical issues as far as the delay. So when you're listening, when you're watching, there were I would speak, and then we have to wait, and then she speaks because this Zoom, internet, long distance conversations. You see the delay. So nothing serious. Content fantastic. She had great answers. I tried to have good questions. And so I really hope you enjoyed this interview, this conversation with Mia Renna. Enjoy. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you, Mia. I'm excited. This is this is going to be a great. I like meeting new people. It's funny because I'm a major introvert, so I say that with hesitation because it's nice to meet some people.
Really?
And then some people are just like, I'll just stick with surface conversation, and then I just run away and never see you again, kind of thing. So, but it's always nice to meet new people, and so it's great talking to you, Mia. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your sweet Christmas. That's Zoom reminding me on my phone that I'm on a meeting. Oops. Obviously, I can't detect that.
You're good.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing more about your memoir. It's a very intense topic, and so my first question is, how comfortable are you talking about it?
I'm actually really comfortable talking about it in the sense that it's for my book and just talking to kind of strangers and potential readers. In my personal life, though, I have a more difficult time talking about it, which is just interesting because, of course, I'm posting about things online and I'm pretty vocal about things. But then if I have someone close to me kind of bring me aside and ask how things are going, I have a difficult time wanting to talk to them about it. So I kind of compartmentalize my two selves a little bit.
That's normal. I mean, all of us do that, whether we realize it or not. And I was thinking, when you're talking to someone that it's just a bit more personal. It hits you, you can talk to a complete stranger, and it's not going to personally affect and stick in my life. When you're having a conversation with someone it's you're going to continue this relationship with this person, and that's going to impact how they see you, how they relate to you, how they, and so it's. I can totally get that. It makes perfect sense to me. So let's for the readers, let's go into the what is it your story about?
Entails my time in the military, as well as my personal life of being raped, as well as being in a domestic abusive relationship. However, being in the military kind of complicates me being able to deal with what I was going through, just because it was difficult to get mental health support. The few times I did try to come forward saying that I needed help, I was shot down. So there's different types of things that the military enforces when it comes to people coming forward with things like that. And just because it's a rule doesn't mean it's actually followed. So that's something that I come forward with. And what I find important with how I'm writing this in my story is I'm pairing it with other people's stories and just regular statistics that are out there, that what I've gone through isn't out of the norm. It's very common occurrence. It's just horrifying in its own self. So yeah, it's a little bit of both, just about me, and then kind of tying it into just the general population and what they deal with.
So how common is it just from the statistics you've looked at, like how regular is this? Because it's disconcerting. I've kind of heard about it, and I knew someone that I used to work with, and she was interested in going to the military. And one of my major concerns, because she was incredibly beautiful, was that she'd be in a situation where something like that would happen. And how common is this, if you could say, like statistically?
So in the general population, it's very common. General population, it's estimated that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 12 men will be a victim of sexual assault across their lifetime. If you pair that with being a part of the LGBTQ community, or if you're a person of color, that statistic rises even further. In the military in particular, it's also higher. For men, it's around average, still 1 in 12 is the general population, but for women, that goes up to 1 in 4 instead of 1 in 5, as well as the likelihood of you getting sexually assaulted again, if you're sexually assaulted once, goes up a lot. And sexual harassment, which is something I also dealt with while in the military with a direct supervisor, that is very common. Annually, about a fourth of the force is dealing with sexual harassment of some kind. And that's just every year, not across their entire time of service. And the rate of conviction is very low. Last year it was, I can't remember the specific number off the top of my head right now, but it was in the single digits of how many people were actually convicted of rape when they came forward to trial and going through everything. So it's just very disheartening to be told, trust the system, go through, reporting and things of that nature when you see the results and no one gets really punished for doing anything. So
yeah, that's
very common.
That's just disheartening to hear, especially considering I know in the military you don't really have too much control over where you go or where you are, and even if you report things, it's really up to your higher ups to reassign you or transfer you, and so I worry that that's almost kind of almost you kind of feel helpless because you're especially if it's your supervisor that's doing this, you're dependent on that person or someone above them having the willingness to trust you, believe in you, believe what you're saying, and then take you someplace else outside of where you currently are. So that's I get that's rough, and actually I understand that would increase the frequency if you're around that person and you can't get away from that person, that if they get away with it, they're gonna do it again because they can. They've truly proven that they can. So I'm guessing this one of the reasons why you're writing this, so that you can put a spotlight on it. Is your outcome, is the desired outcome to make this a direct change to what's happening?
Yes, so I'm writing it just to give more insight into the situation. I think a lot of people, when they hear stories and they read things, that it's very rare that they don't know someone who's gone through it. Or even the more concerning thing is people have a tendency to think that false accusations are common and they're more of an issue than actual rape itself, which is just a huge misconception. But it's very common in the military to be dealing with that. So, I mean, last year, a big story was Vanessa Guillen. She was a victim of sexual harassment and then later on was murdered by the person who was harassing her. So people read that story and of course it's alarming, and it's inflicting a lot of people wanting to come forward and want to change things, but then there's still a resistance that, oh, this is just one instance, they followed what we were supposed to be doing, so there's nothing that can be done. So I think that's what needs to change, and that's what I'm hoping that my story is a little bit different than others that come forward, because I am trying to pull in how common this is. Like, okay, this is a terrible situation on an individual level, but look at how many other people are also dealing with this. This is an epidemic that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, it is, and I feel like it should be really attacked on two fronts. First, a false report. I don't know how common it is, and it's alarming to even think that someone would do that. But I feel like every time someone makes a false report, it affects thousands of women who have been impacted. It just victimizes them all over again, because not only are you exploiting their experiences, you're also making it hard for people to trust them. So I feel like there has to be measures taken to um, hold them accountable when it's um, significant evidence to prove that it's false, so that they don't do that and no one else does that. But also changing the rules or improving the rules so that women do speak out and they are impacted. You know, their voice is actualized and it's heard, especially when there are repeat incidences with particular individuals, that they can do something about it to change that. And so I really wish and hope that the best comes out of this, because this is something that truly needs to change dramatically, quickly, as soon as possible. Change for everyone's sake, especially the women's sake.
So for false accusations, it's estimated that about 2% of all formal accusations that come forward are false. That statistic is slightly less than the false accusations that come forward for burglary and all forms of assault. So of course, it would be a lie for me to say that it never happens, but the rarity of it, based on just the perceptions that people have about when people come forward that it's being false, definitely doesn't align with other crimes. And of course, historically, our nation is very, has a racist history, and a lot of false accusations did come from white women against Black men. So that's something that needs to be addressed as well when you're discussing the fake accusations that come forward. But again, it's very rare, but they do occur. But of course, yes, when someone does have a fake accusation, it kind of brings everyone down, because it's some people who want to pull that argument like, oh, well, look at this person was lying, so of course everyone else is lying, which is just damaging to the whole system.
Yeah. One example I can think of, it's very publicized, how the whole Amber Heard and Johnny Depp thing. That was one of those examples where someone said something and the narrative later proved that at least Johnny Depp, at least from what was reported, was she had a completely different temperament, and a lot of stuff was made to seem like it was something that it was not. And so I hope that again, that's just one example that came to my head when you mentioned that. And so yeah, 2%. That's low, but it's too high. And I've definitely seen,
right.
incidents.
And of course, for male victims, it's probably. Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No worries. You're fine.
I was just going to say, for male victims, like the Johnny Depp's. Oh, sorry. I think there's like a little bit of a lag, because when I think you're stopped talking, you're talking. I'm so sorry. But I was just going to make a note that for male victims, it's problematic that a lot of people don't believe them, that they can be a victim, especially when the perpetrator is a woman, that they're not believed and they're not dealt with properly when authorities are involved or when they come forward. So that's just another obstacle that men do have when they come forward, because they can be victims of assault and abuse, physical, mental, all of that. So it's important that we handle that as well, giving them space. I know a lot of women, majority the victims are women, but there are men victims. So making sure that they have an opportunity to be able to come forward and be heard as well in society, it's important.
Yeah. One of my questions I was going to ask you was, in your research, and I'm going to ask you about the research process too, but in your research, have you started having like personal conversations with other people that have had these experiences and sort of gotten their added their story into the memoir, or is it primarily just focused on you?
So this memoir is going to be focused on me. However, I did have a lot of conversations with other survivors that are in the military currently or have gotten out of the military since. And it just helps me again, I feel like there's just a lot of numbers that get thrown around that are very sterile. You hear 1 in 4, and okay, that's problematic, that's a high number, but you're not really thinking about every individual and what their story is. So being able to listen to other people definitely gives me more perspective of, okay, yes, this is very, very problematic that this is occurring, and this is an epidemic that needs to be dealt with. So it's been motivating me to just keep going.
I can imagine it does. Every time you hear the story, it just kind of like inflames you, the level of injustice that is just committed by people not taking action, and the lack of accountability, I think, is the worst thing, because I mean, just watching this in the community right now, just in the world, you see, I mean, not just this, but with the police, there's a crime happens and they get a slap on the wrist when someone's dead, and that's a travesty. And so, like, in the military, there has to be a change, in the police, there has to be a change. There has to be a sweeping insistence and demand for accountability, for men and for women. And that's so again, I really hope that your message, as far as other people's, really starts to resonate in people's minds, and makes a significant difference with that.
Absolutely. Yes, retaliation is an issue that's dealt with in the military a lot once people come forward. And then, yeah, outside of the military, there's a lack of trust in police. So if someone is assaulted, they are raped, they don't trust the process, going to the police officers to file a report. And, you can't really fault someone for feeling that way, based on just how prevalent it is that they're taken advantage of. And also in certain states, it's still legal for police to have sex slash, I say have sex, but really it's raping a person that's in custody. So, I mean, I completely understand that people want to avoid that at all costs. And then again, it's just more leading into people not being able to get justice for what's happening to them. So in general, it's just a bad situation all around.
So I'm sorry, I'm a bit taken aback by what you said, because I didn't realize this was actually a thing. They're actually allowed to have sex with someone in custody. Like, I am so shocked. I don't even know how to respond to this. This is like, how is this possible? How is that, like, that's a thing, seriously.
Right. It's horrifying. Absolutely. Because there's no way you can give consent, and then that's what happens is these police officers, they claim like, oh, well, they wanted this, like, this is consensual. But how is it consensual if you're in custody? Some of these victims that have come forward about, police brutality while they're in custody and being raped, they're handcuffed. There's no consent there. And in certain states it's allowed, and they go to trial, and this law allowing them to have sex with someone in custody is preventing people from getting justice. But really it is rape. It's legalized rape almost to a point. And then you hear a lot of these instances, especially in the people of color trans community, having issues with it, especially sex workers as well. So it's problematic for sure. So those laws need to change, absolutely.
Like, immediately, like, it shouldn't even be a question. I mean, if they're worried about sexual harassment in the workplace with, like, managers and underlings, a police officer and someone in custody, that person has immediately, they've lost half of their rights because they're not free. They're being held against their will. So there shouldn't even be a question. So, like, I can't even imagine that that's still allowed. So the fact that it's allowed, yep. It should be stopped, like, immediately. Like, they should immediately. I'm just shocked.
Yeah, it is very shocking. I wish I had, some enlightening thing to follow that up with, but I don't. There's just, follow up with, looking into your state, seeing if one of your states is one of the ones that allows it, and look into which grassroots organizations that are local that are trying to put a stop to it. Ask them what they need help with. That's, but there's people doing the work that have been trying to do the work for decades, trying to get these things off the legality list, and just unsuccessful. So definitely something that needs to be federally put a stop to. Absolutely.
Yes, I agree, and that's where I guess social media can get involved. I mean, I don't know, Twitter has somehow become, like, the place where movements go to thrive. So maybe you can start almost there, just putting the statistics out there, the reality out there, making sure as many people as possible get it out there that this is still allowed, what states it's allowed in, and anyone who stands in the way of stopping, this from being stopped, because this is a no-brainer that it needs to stop. I don't want to be too much of a Debbie Downer in this interview. This is intense, but let's talk about writing, because I started to get inflamed with some of this stuff. So, how far are you in your memoir? How far are you from finishing? How soon can we see this?
So I love that question. A little sarcastically. No, I was actually doing really well before the pandemic. I finished my manuscript last January 2020. And I've been in an editing process since. Honestly, with the pandemic, I've had a hard time being able to dedicate as much time as I needed to on this, especially with some of the traumatic chapters. Being able to cope with writing those, I have to plan something after to kind of get my mind off things. But of course, being locked up, it's been impossible for me to do something after. So I've kind of taken a hiatus. I'm officially not in a hiatus anymore. Realistically, I'm in the last editing stage. I'm hoping I'm going to be starting to query for publishing houses at the end of the summer. So hopefully not too long. It has taken a beat though. It should have been done last year, but this pandemic really did hit me hard. So hopefully soon now. Everyone get vaccinated. Wear your masks.
Yeah, you're definitely not the only one. I mean, writing in 2020 hit writers in two different ways. Either they really kicked off and had the free time to write, or things didn't really stop as far as like their work. They worked from home. Some got busier. For instance, me, I got busier. And so when you say it should already be done, like the novel I'm writing right now, it's not even a full novel. It's supposed to be a novella. And so it's supposed to be like half the size of my normal, I usually write 400-page books. So if I can get 200 and finish it, that'll be great. But it's still a matter of, actually finishing it, which is the challenge. And so I understand, like, it's, a work comes out when it needs to come out. And so there's no pressure there. But I understand what you're saying about, having a hiatus. I've had numerous hiatuses when I'm writing my books, and it's great when you come back to it with fresh eyes too. So what is your research process like? How do you find your resources?
So originally, my writing process, like for my first manuscript, before I started the editing process, I kind of just had, honestly, words just like pouring on, to the paper. Essentially, I would get kind of in these memories because it is about my life. It's easier, for me I have it all in my head rather than fiction writers, they're creating a whole world and character development, whereas, it's just living my life. So I'm just writing my memories down. And that part was very easy. So when I start editing, now that was, I've been having more difficulty with that. So I'm actually going back, grammatically editing things. My book's going to be in first person present tense. So I first wrote some of these things down in past tense just because it was easier to get it down. So rewriting it to be first person present tense, making sure all my dates are accurate for when I'm referencing events happening and things like that. So really right now, my last editing stage I'm doing at the moment is really just grammar. I'm just doing a lot of reading what I've already written down and listening to what I'm saying and deciding whether or not it needs to be adjusted if it doesn't sound correct. So it's kind of the boring part. I miss the first part of being able to just pour everything on paper. But I don't know any writer that loves editing, so.
No, you're 100% right. Editing is like, it's like you like writing is like the honeymoon period. And then after that, then it's like, okay, the story's done. Now I have to read this over and over and over again, like 12, times, how many times it takes, to get it right and make it perfect. And it's like, you kind of, it's like at some point you're just like, okay, I just got to stop. It's never going to be completely and totally perfect. And then you pass it on to someone else. and then they can go through it, and then they can see things you didn't catch even though you read it, like, again, 50 million times you read the book and then you still miss those little typos. I hate that I published it and then I found like 3 typos. I was like, well, how is this even possible? I read this so many times.
Oh no.
So I totally get that. It drives me crazy. Do you have like people that are like advanced reader, people that are like beta readers that are looking at it and giving you their opinions or their feelings about it?
Will once I think this final edit I'm doing right now, I'm doing what you're gonna do. I'm just have to lift my hands up and say, you know what, this is it. Stop touching it. Just because I feel like I'm never satisfied with it. So then yes, that's gonna be when I start being able to like put out what I'm doing. I just at the moment I still need this last edit for my own personal sanity check to go through.
I gotcha. Yeah, you want to make sure that when someone's reading it for the first time, it's as fresh and as clean as possible, because you don't want to you want it to look crisp before it can get crisper. Like I get that. Like you want someone to get a well, because they're going to have a hard time reading it if it's not completely refined. So are you going to share it with close family members, or are you looking for like outside ears, or people that are in the military that have had that experience? Like who's going to be taking a look at it to see it, so you can get like the best response?
So all the names are going to be changed in the book, just to verify that everyone who is innocent in all of this isn't going to get identified and brought in. But with that, there are 2 assaults that occurred with close friends of mine, basically alongside mine. So they made it into my story, and I discussed with them beforehand, and they're okay with me talking about it. And of course, their names are changed. However, I'm going to have them read it first, and especially their parts, and just make sure that they are still okay with what's going out there. But then on top of that, it's going to be outsiders, mostly people that are writers and will be able to catch certain things and be able to understand others. And yeah, mostly other writers I'm going to reach out to, make sure that what I'm saying actually is getting conveyed correctly.
I like that. That's important. I'm glad that, of course, it's common courtesy to make sure that the person who's going to be in the story appreciates what you've written and that everything's accurate. And I think that's wonderful. How I know that working in the military, there's a lot of discretion and a lot of secrecy and a lot of security. Like, how much are you allowed to disclose? Because I know even the topic itself, it's got to bring some little attention because you have security clearance. So how much can you put in it, and how much can be public?
Well, nothing I'm putting in there is classified at all. Actually, probably the investigations that I did have, if someone put a Freedom of Information Act request in, it could be provided with people's actual names. But yeah, there's nothing that I'm putting in there that could be like a security issue at all. So I'm not worried about that. It's more just making sure that other people who didn't do anything wrong aren't being put in something that they might not approve of. So, or they just don't want the extra attention of being in a book. So
I get that because I want your book to be successful, because the more successful your book is, the more light is shed on this, and so it can be stopped. And I understand, like, some people don't want to be in the limelight. Some people don't want their story to be told. Some people have that fear of like being looked at a certain way, and so it's changing names, of course, is a wonderful thing, and having them read that is it's really good for you to do that for their best interests. So again, going back to your process, because this is a writing podcast, and I don't talk to many people that are nonfiction writers. Most of the people I talk to, almost all the writers I talk to, are fiction writers. So when you're writing it, is this in like chronological order, or are you talking like this is this topic and then this is how my life relates to it, or is it like kind of a mix of the two?
So it is not in chronological order. Especially when I was writing, there would just be some days that certain things were just on the tip of my brain. So I would get all that down first. But now when I've been editing and like reorganizing which topics are going where, it's not in chronological order. So it is in a sense of which topics are most relevant in the moment, kind of going together and kind of making the story flow. For the most part, it's somewhat chronological, obviously, because things build into one another, but again, some things jump around somewhat. So like, for example, my abusive ex-boyfriend, all of his kind of things are kind of put together in the story, but other pieces during that are kind of placed elsewhere that aren't relevant to him, just so it makes sense when you're reading wise, if that makes sense. I guess you'll have to read it to see it. It'll make sense when it's
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely want to read it. And as soon as you know that you got it and it's going to be out, I want to have access to it. I want to read it. I want to support your work there. So let me know, and then I'll post it on Twitter. I'll post it on all of my conversation with Antuan stuff. I'll post the progress, when people can expect a release, all the details. Because it's going to be like a pre-release, so people can buy it in advance. I want to know all that stuff so we can get that out there, and get as many eyes on it as possible. Because it's important. I mean, I didn't even touch the abuse.
It's really kind of you. Thank you. I'll definitely let you know as soon as it's out there. Also, I can give you an advanced copy as well as soon as I'm done with that.
Absolutely, yes. I'm definitely willing to read an advanced copy because I mean it's just you've had an incredible life, and it should be it's just notable. People should hear about it, and change should be made based on that. Do you plan on writing more about this after the memoir? Like, is it going to be like Mia Renna Part 2? Like what's next after this?
Honestly, I haven't thought about that. For a while, I thought I was going to do an anthology of people's stories. However, with the pandemic, I had a difficult time getting motivation of people wanting to contribute to it. And at the same time, in that project, I was able to find a large group of women veterans, and I joined a grassroots coalition for a bit, working on the I Am Vanessa Guillen bill. And that has been really fulfilling. With that, I've also just been continually doing more policy work at a federal level, trying to advocate for veterans' rights, which is really great for me. I love it, every second of it. It's amazing. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see. This is definitely, my memoir has been my baby though for the past few years. So this will definitely be on the forefront of my mind, making sure it gets done over any other project that might come in the future.
I gotcha, and I like that. The whole anthology idea, it makes perfect sense. It's a great follow-up. If eventually when you get to that, I'd like to hear more about your policy work, because I didn't know how active you were involved in shaping that. What are you working on outside of writing?
So outside of writing, for my policy work specifically for the veteran community, I work with now I'm with Minority Veterans of America as a policy advisor. I've been working with them on specific policy, congressional testimony when it comes to women's health care and women's treatment and sexual assault and harassment at VA facilities. So that's been great. Just helping do research for that. And in some other projects, I'll jump in and just do the help with some research rather than the actual congressional testimony writing. So I did some research into the LGBTQ stats, how many veterans out there are actually openly out and proud, serving honorably. I recently also, about the LGBTQ community, I wrote an article for Seattle Pride, discussing how to honor them on Memorial Day, since their history is very much almost erased. Because of all the discriminatory policies and don't ask, don't tell, not allowing them to serve openly. So that was a great project too, being able to be a part of. So yeah, that's but then like my day job, I'm a PhD student at the University of Illinois, working on civil engineering, and my research will be in equitable policy about natural disaster mitigation and recovery strategies. So that's a different part of me. Again, a little bit compartmentalized, my writing side and my day-to-day side, but yeah.
I feel like it all can work together really well. I mean, hopefully someday you won't have to be compartmentalized, because I feel like life is a little bit freer when you don't have boxes and everything can kind of like, free flow and connect to each other. And so that's but that's, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, that's amazing what you're working on right now. PhD and policy, that's incredible. I really think you're doing some incredible stuff. I'm amazed. I'm stunned. I did take a look at your blog, and I did see the reference to the LGBTQ stuff, and it's there's I'm sure there's a lot of things that are going to be coming up in the future with that. I'm a bit of a private person, so I'm not too focused on what people are doing in their private time. But I do respect that people actually, had a willingness to serve, no matter what their personal preferences are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I took a little hiatus from my blog too, but I'm back, so it's nice writing for my blog again too. Just little things that I come across when editing and some thoughts that I have. It's nice.
Excellent. Now, I wonder, like, do you see yourself? I mean, it sounds like you're kind of moving into a trajectory or something. Do you see yourself going into policy yourself, like politics? If this goes in the direction you want it to, do you see yourself making legislation to enforce this change? Because I feel like you have the potential for that based on what we've been talking about.
So absolutely, I want to be involved in policy work once I graduate. I am really interested in equitable solutions for natural disaster mitigation. You can look at almost every disaster in the country and just recognize how certain minority groups are hit harder when it comes to major disaster weather events. So that's something I'm interested in. And of course, like my personal experiences being, a woman in the military and my observations of other minority groups being disenfranchised while serving. I'm very actively, caring about that just because I witnessed it firsthand as well. So in both those areas, I'm very interested in continuing working on this, hopefully for forever. So we'll see, how things play out for me, but yeah, it's definitely my major interest.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, I truly 100% wish you the best. Do you have a title for the book yet, so I can toss that out there, or is that still a work in process too?
Did you I'm sorry, that you kind of cut out there as well. You just said, I wish you the best, something work in progress too.
Oh, actually, there's a title for your memoir, or if that's still a work in process.
Oh, okay. So my title is going to be Just a Number is going to be what it's called. And that's reflective of when I finally did try to go get help at the first therapist that I've seen when they were taking on me for the military. They didn't want to put in that I was raped while in the service because they had to fill out paperwork. When I attempted to protest, I was asked, do I want to be just another, do I just want to be a number? Because that's what's going to happen if I go through with the paperwork. So yep, that's now the title of my book. So thank you, Dr. So-and-so, for that.
I'm just, wow. I'm stunned that you would even say so. Have the audacity to say you're going to be just a number. I feel like whoever said that should immediately get fired. Like, you don't, so if someone's coming forward, you don't just say, yeah, sure, fill all the documentation, and in reality, you don't matter, and then you're just going to be just a statistic. I feel like that's I'm a peaceful man, but you got to slap somebody for saying some stuff like that. I just, wow.
Yeah, definitely not the best. In the moment, I was very angry at the whole situation. But the thing is, as a title, I think it's spectacular, especially because I am bringing in all the statistics of other people along with my story. So I'm like, this works, you know, and of course I have that instance in my book so people can pull out the title from, you know, that chapter. So, you know, I guess everything happens for a reason, right?
Yes, and that really is the perfect title for that, based on that experience there. I mean, it meets, the goal is to make sure that people's experiences aren't just a number, but that there's real significant change in the military, in the police, the custody thing we talked about, all of it. Let's hope that that you can be a strong element in that change. Um, and so, but I love this conversation. It was great talking to you. You're a spectacular guest, and I thank you for everything you've said, and I really wish the best for you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. This has been fun. Yeah, this is a good. I can't wait to listen to the episode when it comes out.
Definitely. I'll share with you when it's going to come out, and it's going to be soon. And again, and I look forward to hearing it again, and I look forward to getting the reaction. Hopefully, a lot of people are going to be involved in listening to it, and getting, you know, a fair shake. But again, I am. Thank you for having a conversation with me, and I look forward to talking to you more about this in the future.
I know what you were saying before we cut out there was that, you know, you liked having me as a guest. I honestly loved being here. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for talking to me. I'm honored, and I look forward to talking to you more.
Awesome. Yes. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well. All right, so there we have it. Another exciting episode, and it's so great meeting Mia. I think that she's awesome and incredibly intelligent. She's doing her research. She's getting everything down right. Some of the stuff we talked about really, it really kind of struck me because I just the injustice and the lack of accountability. It's really upsetting, and I just hope that. I hope that we can really change the system so that people can have their when they report it, it can be taken seriously, and those that are that have created the narrative of a false report, at least the ones that are actually doing it can be stopped. So that 2% is too high of a number, because again, I said it affects so many people. So I hope that can change. I hope people that are actually doing this stuff can be can be stopped. I mean, it's just wow. I was really upset about the custody thing. Being able to have sex with someone while they're in custody sounds like the most corrupt thing. I mean, that's a new thing for me. I didn't know that was a thing, and the fact that it's still a thing, the fact that people actually have that as something that's legal, just it's astounding. It just blows my mind away that something like that can exist and that people allow that. I don't even understand humanity right now. But you heard the episode, so I hope that everyone listen to Mia and that you read her book. I will show the details. It's more than a number. She's more than a number. So please take the time to look at her, check out her blog. I'm going to have all the links listed on podcasts and also on the YouTube. Check it out. Check her out. And again, thank you, Mia, for joining the conversation. And we look forward to hearing more about your journey. And we look forward to seeing your bright future. But thank you, everyone, for listening. Likes, shares, high ratings, all the good stuff. I want this to be a regular thing, so I would really appreciate your support. Check out my Buy Me Coffee. thing. I put that up there. Subscribe. Subscribers are important. Likes are important. Shares are important. It doesn't just help me out. It mostly helps out all the writers that come on my show. Every time you share, hopefully you'll check out all the other videos, all the other authors, Bill Bloom, Emily Inkpen, Mia Renner, my next guests. Just continue to support us. Really appreciate it. It's wonderful that you tune in. Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.